Okay, so it's the first day of our Tangerine read-along. I have the book. So I'm also in the Google Classroom. I don't know if you can't see anything. Let's see. I'm in the Google Classroom, and I'm gonna go to the assignment that's called Novel Study and Project. So that's code for you should too. And so you can see everything I have here. 5 different ways you can read this book. And most of them are attached. The only one you can't do is if you're going to buy it, you have to buy, just buy it on your own. But it's not required. I mean, you can read it as a PDF. So I'm going to open it as a PDF here. And it is called Novel Project News Book Trailer. Novel Study Cornell Notes. There it is. It's called Tangerine PDF.pdf. It's super original. So you open that one up, and that's basically the book. So I have it here, and you have it on your screen. So you'll see like the first page is pretty white, and towards the bottom it says Tangerine Edward Bloor. And then it says Hardcore Ink and Orlando and the copyright. So it's everything that would be on the inside. And then Danny DeVito wrote kind of like a foreword. And I'm going to skip that for now. It's a good book. Do you know who Danny DeVito is? It's funny, on the PDF, they forgot the capital D. Something happened to it, so it looks like Annie DeVito. It's funny. So then it starts there with "A House Looks Strange." And so if you look at mine, I've got a little bit on the dust cover. And then I have, some nice things that people have said about Tangerine. And then it starts with Danny DeVito's message here. So not very long. Let's go ahead and read it because it's good. So what we have to do according to our schedule today, the first day is, or for the first week, we need to read between pages 1 to page 50. So I'm just going to read 10 pages with you a day, and you can follow along with me with the PDF. And then I also want you to look at all those attachments, and I want you to open up the attachment right now that says Cornell Notes Tangerine. So you just open up the Cornell Notes. It should open up a new tab. And when you do that, I'm just going to email. I'll do that later. You'll see a Google Doc, and it looks like a T chart, and there's a place for your name and class and stuff. You don't have to fill it out. I just didn't know how to take it out. I guess I could highlight it and take it out. I didn't want to, because you're not going anywhere with it. Remember, there's an essay question that we're going to be answering, and so I just put there in the corner where it says Cornell Notes Tangerine by Edward Bloor. It says, how did Paul Fisher change and develop through the novel? And then you need to keep track of examples and evidence as we read the novel. So after I read 10 pages, I'm going to think about the 10 pages. And I want to get, in the beginning, I want to get a baseline of what Paul Fisher is like. And so, yeah, and 10 pages is not very much, especially in this book, because it's written kind of like a diary. So I'm actually going to go up to page 12 because I like to break at a chapter. I don't like to break in the middle of a chapter. So, questions. I can't answer you right now, but so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to the PDF, and I'm going to go scroll back up to where Danny DeVito is talking. The best thing to do, in my opinion, is for you to read it on your screen and listen to me at the same time. So you'll have 2 tabs open, so you won't be watching me read you a book because it's going to look kind of funny. Anyway, so I'm just going to take a little sip of water. Okay, here we go. So I'm at the Danny DeVito on Tangerine. The rites of passage for a 14-year-old boy can be unsettling, frightening, and even dangerous. There's little comfort for him facing challenges that often seem insurmountable, especially when he feels misunderstood by his parents and threatened by his older brother. This is the case with Paul Fisher, the protagonist of Tangerine. Does he crumble in his difficult journey to become a young adult? It would be unfair of me to reveal any part of this engrossing story. Why spoil the reader's fun in discovering for himself the striking originality and cumulative power of this unforgettable novel? As a parent, I find Tangerine inspiring and uplifting because it presents issues relevant to our times: race relations, sibling rivalry, competitive sports, environmental concerns, and more. But most importantly, it deals with human values, values essential to a boy's growth into a mature and insightful young man. Wonder why you got that essay question. Paul may be visually impaired, but it's never disabled him. If anything, his so-called handicap has enhanced his powers of perception, especially where his parents are concerned. But I can see everything. I can see things that mom and dad can't or won't. Or won't are the key words in Paul's parents' relationship with his older brother Eric, a relationship that verges on the dark side, as does Paul's own relationship with Eric. Both athletes, both born of the same parents, Paul and Eric are as different as night and day. The interaction of their individual personalities is what I found compelling, not only as a reader, but as a parent. Eric lurks in the shadows. Paul strives for the light. Never has sibling rivalry been portrayed in such an exciting yet menacing way. Although Tangerine interweaves important themes, it never bogs down in the stodgy seriousness, but always manages to be consistently entertaining. To try to describe the particular nature of Tangerine as a novel would not do it justice. It shouldn't be pigeonholed. It's totally unto itself, unique. But reader, please, but enough of my pontificating on the virtues of Tangerine. Dear reader, please do yourself a favor. Turn this page and immerse yourself in a wondrous story that will haunt you long after you've read it. Danny DeVito. So I'm going to read the dust cover because you don't have it. So what is this book about? So on the inside, it says, like what you would have in the back of the book. There's something else on the back of the book. It says, welcome to Tangerine. This place is weirder than it looks. Paul Fisher sees the world from behind glasses so thick he looks like a bug-eyed alien, but he's not so blind that he can't see there are some very unusual things about his family's new home in Tangerine County, Florida. Where else does a sinkhole swallow the local school, fire burn underground for years, and lightning strike at the same time every day? With all this chaos, compounded by constant harassment from his football star brother, adjusting to life in Tangerine isn't easy for Paul, until he joins the soccer team at his middle school. With the help of his new teammates, Paul discovers what lies beneath the surface of his strange new hometown, and he also gains the courage to face up to some secrets his family has been keeping from him for far too long. In Tangerine, it seems anything is possible. And on the back, it says, out of focus. I was standing at the back of a line of kids waiting to board the bus for one of my first days at kindergarten, but I can't pull all the details in order now, but it became clear to me later that for some reason, the big kids on the school bus were calling me Eclipse Boy. The fact is, we did have an eclipse that summer, around 3 weeks before school started. Based on that, Eric was telling his friends a story. The reason for the Coke bottle glasses on my eyes was that I had stared at the sun, unprotected, during that eclipse. The story puzzled me then, and it puzzles me now. I do not remember doing any such thing, and yet, when I search through our family photos, I can see that I never wore glasses of any kind before that summer. Okay, so here we go. Let's get started. Page 1. So yours starts, I just want to make sure it's exact. So it starts right there at the beginning of that page. The house looks strange. You see that page? It's right after Danny DeVito talked. So here we go. The house looks strange. It was completely empty now, and the door was flung open wide, like something wild had just escaped from it, like it was the empty 2-story tomb of some runaway zombie. Mom called out to me, "Take the bag, Paul. I want to have one last look around." I said, "I just did. I didn't see anything." "Well, maybe you didn't look everywhere. I'll just be a minute." I looked everywhere. "Wait for me out by the car, please. We can't have the new owners thinking we left a mess behind." I picked up the garbage bag and hauled it to the curb. We'd already packed up our sleeping bags, suitcases, and 2 folding chairs, all neatly wedged into the back of Mom's Volvo wagon. Now, only this 10-gallon self-tying lemon-scented garbage bag remained, and we planned to toss it into the dumpster behind the 7-Eleven. But first, Mom had to make sure I didn't overlook anything. She was worried that people who bought our house, people who we've never met, would find a McDonald's swizzle stick and think less of us. Once we dump this garbage bag, that'll be it. That will be the last evidence that the Fisher family ever lived in Houston. Dad and my brother Eric are already gone. They've been living in Florida for a week now, with the sleeping bags, suitcases, and chairs they stuffed into Dad's Range Rover. The rest of our furniture left yesterday, professionally packed by 2 guys who came to really hate Mom. By now, it should be over halfway to our new address, a place called Lake Windsor Downs in Tangerine County, Florida. I set the garbage bag down and leaned against the station wagon, staring east directly into the rising sun. I'm not supposed to do that because my glasses are so thick. My brother Eric once told me that if I ever look directly into the sun with these glasses, my eyeballs will burst into flames, like dry leaves under a magnifying glass. I don't believe that. But I turn back around anyway, and I look west down our street at the receding line of black mailboxes. Something about them fascinated me. I leaned my chin against the top of the station wagon and continued to stare. An old familiar feeling came over me, like I had forgotten something. What was it? What did I need to remember? Somewhere behind me, a car engine started up, and a scene came back to me. I remembered a black metal mailbox on a black metal pole. I was riding my bike home at dinner time, heading east down this street with the sun setting behind me. I heard a loud roar like an animal's, like a predator snarling. I swiveled my head around, still pedaling, and looked back. All I could see was a red sun, huge now, setting right over the middle of the street. I couldn't see anything else, but I could hear the roar even louder now, and I recognized it, the roar of an engine revved up to full throttle. I tilted up my sports goggles to unfog them. Then I turned back and saw it, a black car. Just an outline at first, then clear and detailed, it came right out of the sun. I saw a man hanging out of the passenger window, hanging way out. He had something pulled over his face, some kind of ski mask, and he was holding a long metal baseball bat in both hands, like a murder weapon. Then the gears ground, the tires squealed, and the car leaped forward at an impossible speed. I swiveled back, terrified, and pedaled as hard as I could. I could hear the roar of the car closing in on me, louder and louder, like it had smelled its prey. I shot a glance into my bike mirror, and there it was, half a block behind. Then 10 yards, then 1 yard. The man in the ski mask leaned further out the window. He pulled the bat back and up. Then he brought it forward with a mighty swing right at my head. I dove to the right, landing on my face in the grass, just as the baseball bat smashed into the mailbox, exploding it right off its pole. Voices inside the car screamed, animal fury screams, as the crushed black metal clattered across the street. I scrambled back up. I left my bike there, its wheels spinning, and ran for home. I ran in absolute terror, listening for the sound of the car squealing back around to come after me again. I burst through the front door, crying hysterically. My goggles were twisted back around my head. I spun around and went around looking for Mom. Then Mom and Dad were both in front of me, holding on to my shoulders, trying to calm me down, trying to understand the word I was saying over and over. It was Eric. I was saying Eric. Dad finally understood. He looked right into my eyes and asked, "What do you mean by Eric?" "Eric what, Paul?" I stammered out, "Eric, he tried to kill me." Mom and Dad let go of my shoulders and stepped back. They looked at each other, puzzled. Then Dad raised his arm up and pointed to the right, into the dining room. There was Eric. He was sitting at the dining room table. He was doing his homework. Dad eyeballed me for a few seconds. Then he went out front to look for my bike. Eric called over, "There he goes, blaming me again." Mom took me into the kitchen and got me a glass of water. She ran her finger under the strap of my goggles and slipped them off. Then she said, "Honey, you know how it is with your eyesight. You know you can't see very well." And that was that. But I can see. I can see everything. I can see things Mom and Dad can't or won't. Mom's voice broke into my remembrance. "Paul?" My chin was still pressed against the car. She was standing next to me. "Paul, are you with us?" I leaned back as she beeped the auto alarm and opened the tailgate. "You're remembering all the good times you had here, aren't you?" I shook my head to clear it. I reached to pick up the garbage bag. My arms felt weak. I muttered, I was remembering something that happened." She held up a white cigarette butt and said, "You don't know anything about this, do you?" "No. I found it in the garbage, behind the water heater." I opened up the garbage bag enough for her to slip it inside. I said, "Good work, Mom." She walked quickly back up to the house, laid her keys inside the foyer, and pulled the door firmly closed. And that was that. The keys were locked in, the zombie was locked out, and we were on our way. Part 1. Scrolling right there. Friday, August 18th. So remember, it's written like a bunch of journal entries. And we're going to read all the way through Friday, August 18th. And then I'm going to stop for today. For Mom, the move from Texas to Florida was a military operation, like the mini move she had made as a child. We had our orders, we had our supplies, we had a timetable. If it had been necessary to do so, we would have driven the 800 miles from our old house to our new house straight through without stopping at all. We would have refueled the Volvo while hurtling along at 75 miles per hour next to a moving convoy refueling truck. Fortunately, this wasn't necessary. Mom had calculated that we could leave at 6 a.m. Central Daylight Time, stop 3 times at 20 minutes per stop, and still arrive at our destination at 9 o'clock p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. I guess that's challenging if you're the driver. It's pretty boring if you're just sitting there, so I slept on and off until in the early evening we turned off Interstate 10 somewhere in western Florida. The scenery was not what I had expected at all. I stared out the window, fascinated by it. We passed mile after mile of green fields overflowing with tomatoes and onions and watermelons. I suddenly had this crazy feeling like I wanted to bolt from the car and run through the fields until I couldn't run anymore. I said to Mom, "This is Florida? This is what it looks like?" Mom laughed. "Yeah, what do you think it looked like?" "I don't know, a beach with a 50-story condo on it?" "Well, it looks like that too. Florida's a huge place. We'll be living in an area that's more like this one. There are still a lot of farms around." "What do they grow? I bet they grow tangerines." "No, not too many, not anymore. This is too far north for citrus trees. Every few years they'll get a deep freeze that wipes them all out. Most of the citrus growers here have sold off their land to developers." "Yeah? And what do the developers do with it?" "Well, they develop it. They plan communities with nice houses and schools and industrial parks. They create jobs, construction jobs, teaching jobs, civil engineering jobs, like your father's." But once we got farther south and crossed into Tangerine County, we did start to see groves of citrus trees, and they were an amazing sight. They were perfect. Thousands upon thousands of trees in the red glow of sundown, perfectly shaped and perfectly aligned, vertically and horizontally, like squares in a million square grid. Mom pointed. "Look, here comes the first industrial park." I looked up and saw the highway curve off, left and right, into spiral exit ramps, like ram's horns. Low white buildings with black windows stretched out in both directions. They were all identical. Mom said, "There's our exit right up there." I looked ahead another quarter mile and saw another pair of spiral ramps, but I couldn't see much else. A fine brown dust was now blowing across the highway, drifting like snow against the shoulders and swirling up into the air. We turned off Route 27, spiraled around the ram's horns, and headed east. Suddenly, the fine brown dirt became mixed with thick black smoke. Mom said, "Good heavens, look at that." I looked to where she was pointing, up to the left, out in a field, and my heart sank. The black smoke was pouring from a huge bonfire of trees, citrus trees. I said, "Why are they doing that? Why are they just burning them up? To clear the land? Well, why don't they build houses out of them or homeless shelters or something?" Mom shook her head. "I don't think they can build with them. I don't think those trees have any other use other than for fruit." She smiled. "You never hear of people bragging that their dining room set is solid grapefruit, do you?" I didn't smile back. Mom pointed to the right and said, "There's another one." Sure enough, same size, same flames licking up the sides, same smoke billowing out. It was like a Texas football bonfire, but nobody was dancing around it. Nobody was celebrating anything. Then in an instant, in the blink of an eye, we crossed over from this wasteland into a place carpeted with green grass, with trees along both sides of the road and flower beds running down the middle of a median strip. We could see the roofs of big, expensive houses peeking up over the landscaping. Mom said, "This is where the developments begin. This one is called the Manors of Coventry. Aren't they beautiful? Ours is a little further in." We went up past the villas of Versailles, which, if anything, looked even more expensive. Then we saw a gray high wall and a series of wrought iron letters that spelled out Lake Windsor Downs. We passed iron gates and a pond of some kind. Then we made a couple of turns and pulled into a wide driveway. Mom announced, "This is it. This is our house." It was big, 2 stories high, and very white with aqua trim, like a Miami Dolphins football helmet. A new wooden fence ran around both sides to the back, where it met up with that high gray wall. The wall apparently surrounded the entire development. The garage door opened with a smooth mechanical hum. Dad was standing in there with his arms open. He called out, "Perfect timing, you two. The pizzas got here 5 minutes ago." Mom and I climbed out of the car, stiff and hungry. Dad came outside, clicking the garage door closed. He put an arm around each of us and guided us toward the front, saying, "Let's do this the right way, huh? Let's go in the visitor's door." Dad led us through the front door into a tiled foyer, 2 stories high. We turned to the left and passed through an enormous great room with furniture and boxes piled all around it. We ended up in an area off the kitchen that had a small round table and 4 chairs. Eric was sitting in one of the chairs. He waved casually to Mom. He ignored me. Mom waved back at him, but she was looking at the boxes stacked in the kitchen. She said to Dad, "These boxes are marked dining room." Dad said, "Uh-huh. Well, I marked dining room on them, so the movers would put them in the dining room." "Okay, Eric will put them over there." He looked at me and added, "Eric and Paul." Mom asked, "Did the movers break anything?" "No, they didn't break a thing. They were real pros. Nice guys, too." Mom and I each grabbed a chair. Eric opened a pizza box, pulled out a slice, and started stuffing it into his mouth. Mom said, "How about waiting for the rest of us, Eric?" He gave her a tomatoey grin. Dad passed out paper plates, napkins, and cans of soda. Once Dad sat down, the rest of us started to eat. Everybody's mouth was full for a minute. Then Mom said to Dad, "So, what have you been doing?" Dad wiped his mouth. "Work. Trying to get organized up there. Trying to get in to see old Charlie Burns." He looked at me. "He's a real character. You'll have to meet him. Spends half his life at the stock car races. He's crazy about stock car racing." Mom said, "You mean he's really not there? You can't get in to see him because he's not there?" "Right. He's really not there. He's up in Darlington or at Talladega or at Daytona." Mom was concerned. "And that's okay?" "I don't know that it's okay, but that's the way it is. He's the boss. He makes his own hours. He told me I can make my own hours too." He looked over at Eric. "That'll be good for us. I'll be able to go to football practice every day." I thought to myself, okay, here we are. How long did it take Dad to get to his favorite topic, the Eric Fisher football dream? I'd heard it all before, too many times, and I was about to hear it again. I tried to head him off by asking him something, anything, but he was too fast for me. "It's a great opportunity for you boys, too. Eric will get the exposure he needs in the press. The Tangerine Times is crazy about high school football, and we're just down the road from the University of Florida. You know, the Gators? In fact, old Charlie is a big Gators fan, and Florida State and the University of Miami aren't far away. These big-time Florida schools like to draft Florida boys for their teams." That was that. Dad was now off into the Eric Fisher football dream. As soon as I got an opening, I said, May I be excused? I'd like to go find my bedroom." Dad said, "Sure thing. You're at the top of the stairs to the right. Eric's down the other end, and you have two guest rooms in between. You guys should never hear each other." I retraced my steps through the great room, went up the stairs and turned right. I had to squeeze into my bedroom past a stack of boxes. I switched on the light and saw one had polished sheets written on it, so I opened it and made up my bed. Then I found my computer carton and set it up on the desk. When I got around to putting my clothes away in the dresser, I came across a box that said Eric's Trophies. I felt a surge of anger. Mom's anger at the moving guys for doing that. I picked it up and carried it out to the top of the stairs. Eric was standing down in the foyer. He had the front door cracked open. He was talking to a group of kids, at least 2 girls and 1 guy, telling them that he would see them later. I put the box down quietly and hurried back into my room. I turned on the computer, got into my private journal, and wrote until about 11 o'clock. Then I lay down on the bed and fell asleep, but I woke up almost immediately. Someone was running down the hall. It was Eric. I heard him run down the stairs, go out the front door, and pull away in a loud car. I couldn't get back to sleep. My mind started racing like an engine. I started thinking about our old house. Then I started thinking about a zombie, a pissed-off zombie, dragging 1 foot behind him, keeping to the right, taking his time, slowly, surely, stalking his way down Interstate 10. So I'm going to pause there with the reading. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to write down just one note that kind of shows Paul's personality at the beginning of the story. He seems to be a kid who notices stuff. And I think I'm going to make a note on my Cornell notes. So I'm going to open up that document. I'm going to click on that document. It says the Cornell Notes Tangerine. And I'm going to take a note because when he starts noticing the landscape and he's really upset by the citrus trees burning. I don't know if you've ever lived someplace where periodically farmers have to burn their fields, and it is very upsetting. But it's kind of interesting that he was so upset so early on in the story. So I'm going to just grab one of the details, probably around page 8 and 9, and I'm going to jot that down and put a screenshot, and I'll put it with this video. So I'll see you tomorrow.